If I can get it out of the way for 10 minutes, so you can propose to Gwendolyn, will you dine with me tonight?
Am I paying again?
Mm.
One day you will have to pay your bills. Fine, I'll pay.
You are serious about that? I hate people who aren't serious about food. Very shallow.
Mrs. Augusta Bracknell and her daughter Gwendolyn.
Good afternoon, dear Albert. I hope you've been behaving well.
Well, I've been feeling well.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two rarely go together.
Gwendolyn, you do look smart.
I hope I always look smart.
You look quite perfect.
I'm sorry if we're a little late, Albert, but I had to pay a call on dear Mrs. Harbury. I haven't been there since her husband died. I never saw a woman so changed. She looks 20 years younger. And now, I'll have tea and those cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Won't you come and sit next to me, Gwendolyn?
Thank you, Mama, but I'm quite comfortable here.
Lane, there are no cucumber sandwiches. I ordered them especially.
There were no cucumbers to be had this morning, sir.
No cucumbers?
No, sir. No natural, organic, kosher, irradiated, chemical-free, hothouse, hydroponic, hormone-free.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm greatly distressed. Mrs. Harbury had no cucumber sandwiches. And now this, from my favorite nephew.
We have muffins, dear Aunt Augusta.
I do not like muffins. Ask anybody who knows me, they will tell you I like cucumber sandwiches. What do I like, Mr. Worthing?
You like cucumber sandwiches.
You see, Albert, and this gentleman hardly knows me.
I'm sorry, Aunt Augusta.
So was Mrs. Harbury. Her mind seems elsewhere since her husband's demise.
I hear her hair turned quite blonde from grief.
Now, Albert, tonight I have a special treat for you. You will dine with your uncle, the senator, and me.
I'm afraid I'm not going to be available this evening.
Oh, no. That means I have to dine with your uncle.
Yes, I just received a message saying my poor friend Bunbury is quite ill again. They feel I should be with him.
Your friend, Mr. Bunbury, seems to suffer from very poor health.
Yes, he's quite the invalid.
Seems to me it's high time Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or die. This shilly-shallying around with the question is very annoying.
I'll mention it to him.
Would you also mention to him that I would be obliged if he would not have a relapse this Saturday? I'm counting on you to play the piano for me for a small get-together.
I'm sure he'll be well by then. The music shouldn't be a problem. Perhaps we should go over a few tunes together. Would you join me in the music room?
Thank you, Albert. That is very thoughtful of you. What kind of music did you have in mind?
Some pieces by Beethoven.
I'm not sure my guest would understand something played in German. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me.
Of course, Mama.
Charming day it has been, Miss Bracknell.
Please don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever anyone talks to me about the weather, I feel quite certain that they mean something else.
I do mean something else. And I would like to take advantage of your mother's temporary absence.
I would advise you to do so. Mama has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Bracknell, ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any girl I ever met. Since I met you.
Yes, I know. And for me, you've always had an irresistible fascination. Even before we met, I was attracted to you. We live, as we are reminded by our more liberal politicians, in an age of ideals. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Ernest. There's something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. When Albert first told me that he had a friend by the name of Ernest, I knew that I was destined to love you.
You love me, Gwendolyn. You don't know how happy you've made me. But you don't really mean to say you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest.
But it is Ernest.
Oh, yes, I know it is, but supposing it were something else, surely you would still...
Well, that is clearly a speculation, and like a stock market speculation, it has little relation to real life.
To speak quite candidly, I don't much care for the name of Ernest. I don't think it suits me.
It suits you perfectly. It's a divine name. It produces vibrations. It has a music of its own.
I think there are other much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, an excellent name.
Jack? There is very little music, if any at all, in the name of Jack. It does not produce vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were plain. No, the only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, married at once.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
You know I love you, and you led me to believe you weren't absolutely indifferent to me.
But you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said about marriage.
Perhaps I should propose to you now.
I think that would be an excellent idea.
Gwendolyn,
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you to say to me?
you know what I have to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn,
Yes, Ernest?
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from that semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mamma, please, a moment. Mr. Worthing hasn't finished his proposal.
Proposal?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing.
Pardon me, you are not engaged to anybody. When you do become engaged, I or your father will be the first to know. We will, in due course, inform you.
Mamma,
Mrs. Bracknell, I would like to marry your daughter, and of course we hope to have your consent.
Mr. Worthing, you are not down on my list of eligible young men. However, Gwendolyn, while I make inquiries, you will wait in the car. The car, Gwendolyn! Gwendolyn! You may take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
I prefer to stand.
Now, do you watch cable network news?
Well, yes, I must admit I do.
I am glad to hear it. A man should have an occupation of some kind. There are too many idle men in Manhattan these days. And your age?
26.
A good age for a man to marry? I have always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
Mrs. Bracknell, I know nothing.
I'm pleased to hear it. The whole theory of our modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in this country, an education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would amount to the election of politicians of the wrong kind. What are your politics?
I don't have any. I'm a Democrat.
That could be a problem. But we have had a few dine. With our servants. What is your annual income?
$600,000 a year.
From what source?
Investments. Mostly internet technology.
Computers. Newfangled home appliances. I do not hold with them. I find the telephone sufficient. What about property?
I have a country estate with 100 or so acres of land.
You have a place in the city, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
I have a place on Belgrave Avenue.
What number?
149.
The unfashionable side. I knew there was something. However, that could be easily altered.
The fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary. Albert, kindly leave the room.
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
Now, to other matters. Who are your parents?
I'm afraid I have lost both parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, could be considered unfortunate. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? Evidently he was a man of some wealth.
Fact is, when I said I had lost my parents, It would be nearer the truth to say that they seem to have lost me. I don't know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old, very charitable gentleman, found me. He gave me the name of Worthing because he had, at the time, a train ticket for Worthing in his pocket. It's in New England. A health spa.
Where did this charitable gentleman with a train ticket, first class, I trust, for a health spa, find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, a rather large brown leather handbag with handles on it.
And where did this Mr. Cardew come across this large brown leather handbag with handles on it?
The Lost and Found office at Grand Central Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
The Lost and Found office at Grand Central Station?
Yes. The Dartford, Connecticut line.
The line is immaterial, Mr. Worthing. I admit I feel somewhat bewildered by the information you have just given me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag with or without handles seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life, which reminds one of the worst excesses of being brought up in Texas. As to where the handbag was found, a railway lost and found office, it could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in polite society.
Well, what would you advise me to do? I would do anything to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to produce a relative as soon as possible.
I don't see how I can do that. I can produce the handbag. It's in storage at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Mrs. Bracknell.
No, that does not satisfy me, sir. You can hardly imagine that I or Senator Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a lost and found office and form an alliance with a parcel?
No, Mr. Worthing, no.